Welcome to another episode of Two Who's Review. I'm Alex,
I'm fit.
and today we have an emergency episode. We interrupt our regularly scheduled Doctor Who reviews to bring you a discussion on the most recent trailer for the upcoming TV special, The Power of the Doctor. It is
I love how you just called it an emergency. I mean,
that's the tone. I think that's what we're going into this like. We break glass in case of Chibnall. Um, look,
break glass in case of plot hole.
Yeah.
Fill in here.
It's the trailer for the final story written by Chris Chibnall, starring Jodie Whittaker, Maynard Gill, John Bishop, all that crew. A whole bunch of the production team is getting cycled out at the end of this episode as well. It's airing next week, based on when this is getting uploaded. So next week's episode will be, instead of The Chase, it will be The Power of the Doctor. It might be uploaded a little later than normal, just so we can have a proper discussion and get it edited in time. And then after that, we'll do The Chase. So we apologise for, at the end of last week's episode, setting up how bonkers The Chase was, only to delay it for a couple weeks. But we do need to talk about this kind of stuff when it's relevant. We were waiting on this trailer for a long, long time. We got we got a brief tease at the end of Legend of the Sea Devils. But
Which is 6 months ago.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten anything else until this point, which I think is kind of emblematic on how the BBC is kind of treating this era. Because
absolutely.
If you look back to the end of David Tennant's run on the show, like in the lead up to that special, The End of Time, they were doing marketing overdrive, and not only that, but David Tennant was appearing in almost every other BBC show at around that time. He was doing Graham Norton appearances. He was hosting Nevermind the Buzzcocks. He was on QI. Like, they were doing a whole lot of stuff to really hype up this special. Meanwhile,
and now
fast forward 13 years, and we have a 1-minute trailer dropping 2 weeks before the episode airs, and also before that point, advertisements for a special airing a year from now.
And no interviews, no Graham Norton appearance, no showing up at conventions. Just here's the trailer.
Yep.
And by the way, there wasn't even that much revealed in the trailer. I mean, I get that that's the point. That obviously you don't want to give away the plot. But I recently watched the trailer for Twice Upon a Time, for example.
Yeah.
And there isn't heaps more in that trailer than there is for The Power of the Doctor, but it's enough for there to be a difference, because they're both about a minute long.
Yeah.
But those precious seconds where you're revealing small bits of the plot, that they really matter.
Well, even the first trailer for the night of the time of the Doctor, which was Matt Smith's regeneration episode. I mean, it was a different situation because it was like a month after the 50th, so they really didn't have a lot of time to set this up properly. Before that point, it was all about the 50th, and then they only had about a month to advertise Matt Smith's regeneration episode. But even the small trailer that we got for that, it's like 10 seconds, but it sets up that the Trenzalore is going to be a big deal. So like, and you know what that means because you've seen the previous episode. So like, okay, this is a big deal. This is kind of like, I don't know how, like, we had a 30-second tease at the end of Legend of the Sea Devils. This minute-long trailer is basically the exact same trailer, almost beat for beat. We just get like small bits of information peppered throughout.
Yeah, it's like something about paintings, but then there's not really much else.
Yeah, I mean, we learned that the Daleks are doing something. We already knew that. They were in the special, the teaser at the last time. We learned that well, actually, let's go into it. Like,
Yeah, I will actually also say, though, before we do...
Yeah?
I'm actually glad you did mention The Time of the Doctor, because I also watched the trailer for that as well. And like you say, they establish, the Siege of Trenzalore, so, okay, well, I guess that's what's happening here. But with this trailer, there's not really any of that. It's like stolen paintings, spooky master, haha Daleks, and Yaz at the end of it, and God help me, that's a whole other thing. But that's basically it. They don't really give you a lot of information, so that makes me nervous, Cuff. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, we've been nervous about this episode for a lot longer than this trailer's been out. Let's be honest. I mean, I think we've hinted before we're both terrified about what Chibnall's going to do in his last hurrah.
Mm.
Um, the title, The Power of the Doctor, I think we've said this very recently, but it makes me believe that we're going to get even more Timeless Child reveals that make the Doctor even more of this messianic Time Lord Jesus figure that
Yeah.
that neither of us
Timey-wimey
particularly
Jesus,
like
God,
or find interesting.
God help us.
And I have a feeling that no matter what this episode does, it's going to set Russell T Davies up for failure because he's going to have to come in and do damage control.
Yeah, and I've got, and we'll get into this, but there's obviously a lot of speculation as what's going to happen and how it's going to lead into RTD's second era.
I think
But yeah, like how is he going to clean up the potential mess that could arise from this?
It's such a big deal that we're going into a regeneration episode, and we don't like the moment. Say what you will about other Doctors and other eras of the show, but at the very least, leading up to a regeneration episode, you always felt kind of excited, because there's always this kind of like, how are they going to do it? There's the passing of the torch. How's the new Doctor going to be? What's gonna cause this Doctor that we've come to know for the last 5 years or so to die and regenerate? And how are they going to go?
Yeah,
what are the last
take?
words going to be? What could we've seen this Doctor like overcome so much? What could get them to die? And it's always been like a big mystery surrounding it. And so no matter what you felt about a certain era, you've always gone into a regeneration episode with at least some kind of hype. I feel none of that leading into this special.
Oh, yeah, and look, I've criticized Moffat's era, plenty enough even on this show so far. But you are kind of right, even with like I deliberately I remember watching both The Time of the Doctor and Twice Upon a Time because they were regeneration episodes, and I think there was part of me that thought, oh yeah, I've got a lot of problems with Moffat's writing, but maybe he'll make it come right. Maybe there'll be something interesting there. Because he, again, as much as I disagree with his creative decisions, and I certainly do, you get the impression that he has a basic care about this show, and you're at least curious about what is he going to do, how is he going to out spectacularize himself, what twisty things he's going to throw in there. Now, as it happens, both The Time of the Doctor and especially Twice Upon a Time, I've had issues with both of them, to put it mildly.
Yep.
But the point is, as you say, there's still that anticipation. You wonder, oh, yeah, what's going to happen? How are they going to do this? How are they going to wrangle in, wacky twists and put it all together? You're right, there's none of that here. And part of it is because, actually probably a large part of it, is with the regeneration special, there's always, quotation marks, going to be a quality of melancholy to it. You are saying goodbye to a performance and a Doctor that you've gotten to know over the last few years, that you've gotten to care about, that you have really, in a way, like the writing, at least you've been able to fall in love with. And again, as many problems as I've had with Moffat's writing of even Capaldi, his performance was spectacular. And when, certainly looking back on in hindsight, when Moffat, got it right, so to speak, he did it pretty well. So even I was kind of feeling that sense of melancholy, certainly leading up to Twice Upon a Time. And I know I've gone into this already, but as trite and frustrating as I found his final speech, there's at least a justification there, because he really was a beloved Doctor, and there were a lot of good qualities for him.
Yeah.
There is like barely any of that here. Like there is no and I know we've touched on this before, and I'm gonna say this, I don't care how many times I have to say it. I loved Jodie Whittaker as an actor. I love her performance in the show. I feel so sorry for her, honestly. Like, the caliber of the writing she's been given has been really bad, and because of that, again, love her as an actor, love her performance. I barely find myself, I think, caring about this Doctor. Like,
oh, absolutely.
And it's even, and I know I've said it before, but like, looking back in hindsight, it's even worse now. Because there are moments in Whittaker's era that I do enjoy. There are certain episodes, like, Haunting of Via Diodati.
Yep.
I was I saw some post the other day. I think it was from the official Doctor Who Facebook page or something, and it said it had a quote from The Haunting of Diodati that was in contrast to a quote from the I've forgotten the name of it, but the witch trials one with yeah, because in the Witch Finders episode, it's they have a bit where the Doctor says, "Oh yeah, our command system, it's chain of command, it's really flat." But then in the Haunting of Diodati, they correct that and say, "No, it's not flat. It's I'm the commander. It's me at the summit." I'm like,
Yep.
yes, that's what the Doctor is.
Correct.
The Doctor isn't just some sort of wishy-washy. Oh yeah, we're all pitching in here. We all get a say. No, that's anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing as well, going into a regeneration story, before we get into this trailer properly, you're always expecting some kind of resolution with the era itself, and we've kind of seen that with the past regeneration stories. Chris Eccleston's regeneration story very much wrapped up the Time War arc. David Tennant's regeneration special, it brings back the Master, it brings back Wilfred, it kind of resolves the Donna stuff as well, and it also it gives the Time War arc that's been going through the entire RTD era a final little coda. Matt Smith's regeneration story, it brings back basically all of his recurring arcs. It resolves Trenzalore, it resolves the cracks in the walls, it brings up River Song, it does all this stuff. Peter Capaldi's regeneration special, there's less of that because there's not really an overarching story and his overarching story was largely resolved in the previous episode where it does all the Missy stuff. But even in his one, it brings back Bill, we get Clara back again, we see Rusty again. There's elements from his era that are coming back and sort of tying a nice little bow on it before passing the torch off. And then when you examine this era, all of the stuff that they could bring back is largely stuff I don't want to see again. I don't want them to touch Timeless Child anymore. I don't want them to even think about bringing the Flux back. The idea that elements of this era that I didn't particularly enjoy have the potential to come back in new and exciting, in air quotes, ways. It doesn't fill me with excitement like it has in the past. Like even in I remember the one of the moments that I've had the biggest reaction to in a regeneration special is when we see the crack in the wall for the first time in the Time of the Doctor. Like that iconic shape, and seeing it after years when you're not expecting it again. Just that big okay, this means business. What is this? Because you know the importance of the crack. You know how big a deal it was at the time. And, the Timeless Child is a big deal in the exact opposite way. So, that's fun. And thinking about the ways in which Timeless Child could rear its ugly head again hasn't exactly left me with the biggest smile on my face when thinking about what this episode could do. Especially considering it's bringing back stuff from eras that aren't this one, but we'll get to that. I've got the trailer up here. I'm going to go through it basically shot by shot.
Sure.
And we'll discuss kind of what we think might be happening. So we've got the TARDIS and the Time Vortex. Not especially interesting stuff there. Jodie talking to the Master, who is super disheveled. He's got long hair. He's grown out of his facial hair even more than... I don't think he even had facial hair when we last saw him. So he's obviously been trapped somewhere. The last time we saw this Master, he was on Gallifrey, and there was the death particle that he was about to be exposed to with all the Cyber Masters. He's obviously back somehow. I've touched on this in the past. I don't particularly care for an explanation into how the Master comes back. It's basically established in the lore at this point. Anytime the Master's about to die, they've always got some contingency plan. The one time we saw the Master's contingency plan, it was the weird Secret Books of Saxon thing at the start of End of Time, and it was one of the worst things about that special, so... Not particularly interested in knowing how the Master comes back from this. The fact that he is back at all makes me think, and I've kind of had this theory for a while, especially since I saw the last trailer, because this trailer has it as well. We see Daleks, we see Cybermen, we see Cyber Masters, we also see the lone Cyberman, many of which are dead, along with the supposed Master. I have a feeling that this special is going to be the Master rallying the Doctor's greatest villains in an attempt just to kill her. Like, no other plan, no other big, the Doctor's got to stop something. No, they're just all targeting her. I believe that's what the special.
It wouldn't surprise me. By the way, I know you because you mentioned you wanted to do like a specific predictions and point scoring
Yep,
business.
we'll get to that at the end
Um,
of this
yeah, I
trailer
was gonna say.
analysis.
Um, yeah, fair enough. Um, yeah, I mean that would make sense. That actually does kind of tie into one of the theories that I have. We'll get into it,
Mhm.
but um, yeah, I mean, I don't even.
Well, I think we haven't really discussed this master yet. Um,
Not hugely.
and I'm a huge fan of the actor. Um,
He does a pretty good job.
he does a fantastic job, especially like if this was my thing is if this was any other character, he'd be amazing. You know,
Mm.
he's like, psychotic, he's maniacal, he's
Yeah.
super angry, but like we've seen master stories where he's been just like a gentleman, you know.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's the master I honestly prefer. Like we have seen in the Deadly Assassin a way more deranged master. So
Yeah, he
there is
was
that
something
side of
else.
the character. Um,
Mm.
even John Sims' master was, you know, really chummy with David Tennant in moments where they would like have like genuine connections about their time on
Yeah.
Gallifrey. Missy obviously went through her arc. Like I get none of that between Sacha Dhawan and Jodie Whittaker. Like there is none of that
Yeah.
past that you can sense whenever they're on screen together beyond just the rivalry. Like I don't get the sense of this tragic history with the characters where they used to be good friends and have been since, you know, pitted against each other time and time again. I don't get that
Mm.
tragedy with them. I just get the surface level Doctor versus Master dynamic.
Well, it goes back to something that you've said before, and I will also touch on this on one of the theories I have. Um, when we did Legend of the Sea Devils, you pointed
Hmm.
out that one of the issues with Chibnall's writing is that he appears to only be interested in writing these characters at a surface level, which is
Yep.
just endlessly frustrating.
Hmm.
But I think, as with most of the other characters, it's definitely true with the Master and Doctor's relationship. So, and as we've said with other, characters and their performances, um, really great performance from Sacha Dhawan, and
Hmm.
as you say, and I think that even in the trailer, you can kind of see there's a wonderful kind of madness to him. Like he's trying to really envelop that element of the character, which is admirable, I think, because that kind of the mad element of a character like the Master, I think it's easy to overplay it and to make it a joke or make it a mockery and make it not particularly good. But Sacha Dhawan is doing quite a good job of it.
Well, that's the
Um,
thing. Yeah, like
but it's
it is a very like over the top and maniacal interpretation of the character, but I
yeah,
believe it when he's doing it. You know,
yeah,
like
absolutely. You
it's
get
very very over the top and ham fisted, but it doesn't come across as like, you know, like a mocking interpretation or anything. Like he's
yeah,
really
it's
taking
not
it
like
seriously as he's doing it.
yeah, it's not super corny, and
Mm.
it's again, that's you hit the nail on the head. You need to, I think, like if an actor is performing these sorts of characters, they really need to sort of believe it.
Mm.
Otherwise, they're just going to come across it's going to be too tongue in cheek. The audience isn't going to be able to take it seriously, um, which is really great. And even when he first shows up in Spyfall,
Yeah.
I initially, when I watched that episode, and I think I told you this, I wasn't super sold on his performance. The bit where he does the weird sort of jumping up and down and clapping, I thought, oh, how do I really believe that? But then I watched it again. I thought, oh, actually, no, there's something special here, and the fact that he had the willingness to put that in his performance, and I'm convinced that that's mainly a performance-led thing. Like that's
Hmm.
not. I doubt that that's in the writing.
Yeah.
There's a commitment there, and you kind of really admire it. So that's all great.
Yeah.
But again, unfortunately, Chibnall has seemed to have written this relationship, this character specifically, and the relationship with the Doctor at a surface level, completely. Like, he seemed, especially with the Timeless Child thing, he seemed so sort of hell bent on cramming in this wacky shift in the canon that
Yeah.
he's just forgotten character. He's not really interested in looking at the layers or the nuances between certainly in the relationship between the Doctor and
Well,
the Master.
especially
But
especially
yeah,
when you consider where we left these two characters before this point. You know, like
mm,
the Doctor and Missy had sort of come to an understanding, and they didn't
mm,
exactly leave each other on the best of terms. Like he asked her to stand with him, and she sort of turned away. But they weren't enemies at that point. They were kind of like they'd been he'd been rehabilitating her. They'd been traveling around the TARDIS together for a little bit. They had clearly reached some kind of an understanding. So then to get back to this dynamic almost instantly, where there's nothing but hatred behind the eyes, it kind of
It doesn't.
It leaves me wondering: is this an earlier master than even John Sims?
I. Oh god, I don't even know. But like, maybe there's some moments, like even in the trailer itself, there's that one shot of the master saying, this is when you're being erased. I get that there's some tragedy there behind his eyes, and especially in the performance. But again, that's the performance. It doesn't really sort of map onto the way the character's written.
Oh no, not at all. Like Chris Chibnall has heard way too many people say the Master is the Moriarty to the Doctor's Sherlock, and he's gone, oh, okay, that's the dynamic. Cool, I'll just write it like that.
Yeah.
Like, he hasn't...
Yeah, but there's so much... Yeah, there's more than that. And I mean, he was written... I'm pretty sure Terrence Dicks came up with him, and he said that, yeah, he wanted, like, a Moriarty figure to the Doctor. But there's obviously more than that.
Obviously.
There was more than that even in the classic era, and there's definitely more than that now because of the revival history with it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But, I do believe that the Master is going to be the central villain in this story, at least. I don't think he's going to get overshadowed by anything else. He's clearly going to be the one that's rallying all these different things together against the Doctor. If we continue with the trailer now, we see more vortex traveling, a volcano, which is interesting. That's going to be established somewhere. And then we get to the unit stuff with Kate Stewart and Ace. There's missing paintings.
Yeah.
Obviously we don't really know what that means yet. There was a painting thing that happened in the 50th as well that ended up being crucial. I mean, I don't know what that could entail. Like, that's one of the less interesting elements to talk about with the trailer.
Well, the weird thing is, I don't like, as you say, they do work that into the 50th. But I honestly don't know how that's going to fit into this story, because the story, it's building itself up to be kind of even bigger than the 50th. It's building itself up to be, this gigantic grand thing where the Doctor's going to get erased, and it's after the Timeless Child, and everything's been blown out of the water. So what the hell do paintings on Earth have to do with any of this? Like, what... And I'm probably going to say this fairly frequently in this episode of the podcast, but there are a lot of elements that are being hinted at with this trailer that I could imagine being worked in pretty well in the hands of almost any other writer, even Moffat. Again, as many reservations I have about his writing, there's just a basic sort of attention... I think to the elements of writing, like he's not making, I think, a lot of rookie mistakes, most of the time anyway. So these wackier elements, I could see them working in a Moffat or an RTD story, but with Chibnall, I'm just like, man, he's already proved that with like Legend of the Sea Devils that he should not be spreading himself too thin, because there's like God knows how many concepts and story twists in Legend of the Sea Devils that were already confusing. So I don't know what the hell he's going to do, and he's going to try and rope in missing paintings to end of the universe sort of thing with Doctor going away, and I don't even know, man. So, honestly, you're right in saying that's kind of the least of our worries, but it's still a worry.
Well, especially in the same shot we get Ace. Now, obviously, Ace is a beloved companion to many. She's one of your favourites. I don't know if you've talked about your reservations with Ace being back on the podcast yet. I'm going to give you the floor, because I think you're going to say almost word for word what you said to me in the past about what you think's going to happen with Ace in this adventure.
That was one of my theories. I mean, I've got them written down here.
Well, you'll bring it up now, and then when we actually do
and then we'll go in.
When we do our predictions at the end of this, we'll recap them real quick.
So the first prediction isn't much. It's just a single sentence that I've written. It's just Chibnall will write Ace only at a surface level, parentheses, placing spectacle over character. Can you hear that? Is that all?
Yep, that was all good. Why don't you go into a bit more detail as to what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I do really like Ace as a character, and I have said before on the podcast, she's cool because, she runs around, bashing the shit out of Daleks with a baseball bat, and she blows stuff up with explosives she carries. with her. She embodies a very sort of punk rock attitude, a very late 80s punk rock attitude, and it's just great. And that's all wonderful, but I think that's kind of only the surface of who she is as a character. So the thing is, those elements, they're great, especially given that Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who in particular, does get a bit of a rap for having a bad rap for having particularly women companions not having a lot of agency. Now, thankfully, in my view, we haven't seen that too much in the classic stories we've covered so far, for one reason or another, but it's not undeserved. I think a lot of the time, and we did see this with the Sontaran experiment, a lot of the time I think the women companions, they do kind of get relegated off to sort of the damsel in distress, which is, it's a shame, it's unfortunate. And, it's, as I've often said with Classic Who, with the stuff that hasn't aged as well as it could have, it's, not horrific to the point that we shouldn't watch it, but it's, something we need to be honest about. So, we should definitely be honest about that. The two big exceptions, of course, are Leela and Ace. So the fact that she is this sort of rebel that is not afraid of defending herself, of defending other people, and getting into the fray, and again beating up Daleks and blowing up things with explosives, in contrast to a lot of women companions in Doctor Who, in Classic Who specifically, that's really great. But I really think there's more to this character than that. And I think what Chibnall is going to do is he's only going to explore her on this surface level, even in a less nuanced way than the example I just gave. It's going to literally be like, we've seen the sort of the teaser photo that I think SFX magazine released of her holding the baseball bat as some cheap throwback, which is just going to be so frustrating. So that, I think, is emblematic of the fact that Chibnall is just going to use her as a cheap way to get some spectacle out of it. It's, oh, yeah, person running with gun, blam blam, fuck you, Dalek's gonna beat the shit out of you, and that's gonna be it. But I think she's so much more than that. And what I have said to you before about Ace is that she's a rebel, but she's a rebel with a cause, is a good way of phrasing it. Much like the Doctor, she really cares and has a deep sense of empathy, I think, for other people, especially people who are being oppressed or hurt in some way. We saw this in the Happiness Patrol, the friendship she forms with Susan Q. She appreciates people who are different and who go against the grain, and she doesn't like it when she sees those people, derided or treated cruelly because they're different. And that spirit of compassion and a wonderful desire for adventure, and also crucially wanting to let other people enjoy and participate in the adventure that she may be going on, that's the real core of her character. Again, rebel with a cause. And I think, my God, I feel like Chibnall could just fuck this up so badly by just having her, again, just be this, oh, look at me, guys, run around, blam blam with the gun. Not to mention the fact, by the way, that the Doctor is meant to be an essentially pacifist figure, and the callback that they're using with the baseball bat, I hope Chibnall understands. No, he probably doesn't, but I hope that he understands that in that same story, the Doctor literally takes the baseball bat, destroys the Daleks' transmat with it, destroys the bat basically, and he just says weapons, always useless in the end. And I guarantee you that Chibnall's not going to understand that. He's just going to have, oh, ha ha, Ace running, got the baseball bat, bye-bye, Dalek. He's just not... There's going to be no nuance there. There's not going to be any care about this character. It's going to be, again, as you have said, writing these characters at a surface level. There's going to be just nothing there beyond that surface level. And it's just going to be such a clusterfuck of frustration, because you could use this character to say really interesting things. You really could. The reason why the Doctors, I think, gravitated to Ace in the first place was because, again, they have that sense of compassion mixed with that rebellious streak. They're not... they're not just doing this to be like super edgy or different. They're both kind of punk rock in the purest kind of best sense. Again, and I apologize for saying this a third time, but rebel with a cause.
Yep.
That's what these characters are, and I'm so scared that Chibnall's just gonna completely ruin that. And I know I'm going on one of my classic Fitz rants, but the thing is, I am genuinely concerned about that because Ace is a great character, and it's just gonna it's gonna be heartbreaking, I think, if Chibnall just does not want to explore this character beyond a surface level. And by God, there's enough evidence to suggest that that's exactly what he's gonna do. So
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
God help us, frankly.
yeah. I mean, it's always scary when you get returning characters in the first place. Like we had Kate Stewart show up at the end of Flux. There wasn't really much reason for her to be there. I don't think they really captured the spirit of her character from the Moffat era. She's back in this one. Hopefully she gets more to do, because last time she really did not have an awful lot at all to get involved with. I mean, I really like the character of Kate Stewart. I really want to see more of her in Doctor Who. She could be like this new Brigadier figure where she's showing up throughout different eras, but like, I only want that if they have stuff to say with the character. And I don't know if Chibnall has stuff to say with Ace, or he's just gone, I'll bring back stuff from the classic era to curry favor before I leave.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the trailer real quick.
Yeah.
So, exploding buildings, big old spectacle. They're in the orange spacesuits on the side of the ship. The orange spacesuit, classically worn by David Tennant in various episodes, such as The Waters of Mars, predominantly. That's absolutely what the callback is. There's no other reason. It's the orange spacesuit. TARDIS on an alien world. The Master... Oh, hang on, here's the thing. So we have Yaz pointing a gun at the Master in the TARDIS.
Right.
I have a feeling that scene is going to be like the Doctor has been separated from Yaz, and Yaz is, at her lowest, so she's like, gun. That's how they're going to show, because we know how the Chibnall era has handled guns in the past. They've completely botched the reasons behind the Doctor's aversion to guns many times.
Weapons always useless in the end, and that, in terms of writing, is probably what's going to happen here. It's actually not going to be used in an interesting way. It's just going to be some sort of cheap plot point.
Yeah, well, my interpretation is it's going to be like this is how Chibnall's going to show that Yaz has nothing to lose. How she's going against the Doctor's teachings of guns, never use them.
Yeah, and I'm not even against that on principle, but like again, I just don't trust Chibnall to execute that idea in an effective way.
Oh no, absolutely not. He's already like I said, he's already botched the whole gun thing on many and many occasions in the past. It's not something he understands about the character. But the fact that the Master's in the TARDIS, that could be how he's sort of rallying these forces against the Doctor. Like, he's trapped the Doctor somewhere, he's hijacked the TARDIS, and now he's going around to all these different points in history, or even the Doctor's history, which might be why the lone Cyberman is back. Like, he's pulling these villains out of the Doctor's timeline, and he's like, you're about to die, why don't you kill her now? That way you got some kind of satisfaction when you do end up suffering a defeat, knowing that she gets her own back in the end.
Yeah, and it's like, and that actually, the moment right at the end of the trailer where the Doctor's regenerating, and like, Yaz, maybe that's the Yaz being in the TARDIS is part of that scene. Maybe like the Doctor realizes, oh, she's trapped in the TARDIS with the Master. I've got to save her, but I'm regenerating. Oh no, that wouldn't surprise me at all if that's how that plays out.
Yeah, it could do. We get a hologram of a Dalek in the TARDIS. It's talking to the Doctor, talking about a big invasion they're going to have on Earth. We get Yinder. We see Yinder, who was a character from Flux. Honestly, one of the better parts of Flux, I think, that character. I don't think you've seen Flux yet.
Nope.
So you won't have seen Yinder. I think Yinder only got introduced in the Sontaran episode, War of the Sontarans. But his whole...
I'll watch the rest of it before this latest episode comes out, but yes, as of now, I have not.
Cool.
I've only seen the first episode of it.
Well, Yinder's whole deal was, the Flux... I work on this, like, I had a boss, and I learned that my company was doing real shady things, and I blew the whistle. And as a result, I've now been relegated to doing this really menial job where I'm sort of isolated in this one pod, like far across the galaxy. I'm just observing stuff, and
Mm,
I'm doing my job. I'm doing my good thing.
mm,
But I've seen the flux, and I'm like, right, I've got to. He's reported the flux, and he's like, oh no, I got to get back home because
mm,
the flux is dangerous. My family needs me. We learned that his wife is also looking for him. She's with
mm,
child. Um, you know, and their journey to get back to each other is honestly one of the better aspects of Flux. It's like one of these
mm,
series long arcs that you really do build up. Like
mm,
they really do a good job of establishing the dynamic between the characters and the
mm.
connection between them. So when they do end up getting to get back together again, it's like, oh yes, it happened finally. So now the fact that he's here now is just really making me nervous because they had a good
Yeah,
resolution and they're going to botch it again.
yeah.
But the thing I'm
Mm.
interested in talking about now is that this shot of the TARDIS, where the pull to open sign has been replaced with just ha 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 ha.
Yeah, it
That
was funny,
yeah, it's
but
a good image in any other era because I don't think this
yeah,
episode's going to do it well. I think
no,
this is going to be an indication like this is why I think the Masters hijacked the TARDIS. I think that the Masters got the TARDIS and as a joke or as like to cement his authority, he's replaced all the words with laughing.
mm. I well, the thing is, so I watched that and I thought, I feel like I've even seen that something like that somewhere
We
before
have
in previous.
it's in Turn Left at the end when Donna says Bad
Yeah,
Wolf and all the writing is
yeah,
replaced with Bad Wolf.
yeah. Then I watched some video by I think it's Who Culture on YouTube, and yeah, it had that clip and it's like, oh, so I have seen this before.
Yeah.
And again, as you say, in any other era, that'd be kind of cool and interesting, and I assume this is some sort of a callback, but with it's Chibnall, and
Well,
it might not even be great. And even like just having it be ha ha ha, that doesn't even seem to
that's
be.
not a Master thing. That's a Joker thing.
Yeah, like why is that's not?
I
It
don't
doesn't
associate the
really make a
Master
lot of
with.
sense.
I never associate the Master with just like maniacal laughter, unless it's the John Sim Master in the End of Time, because that just that image is that's a bit different when you've got all the different versions of John Sim's Master having taken over the faces of humanity. All of them just laughing at once. That's a good image, but it's something that really only exists there to highlight what his plan has been. To
Mm,
replace every human on Earth.
mm.
Um, so that works there, but it doesn't really work here because, like I said, I'm not. That's not what the Master is.
No, it's elevating him to a cartoonish
Mm-hmm.
level. Again, as you said, it's a Joker thing. As we've basically just said, like it probably is a callback to Turn Left. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the point. But
Mm.
even if it is, it's
No,
just
look, I don't think it is a callback to that because in order for that to be what it is, Chibnall would have had to have watched Doctor Who before, and we know that he hasn't because we've seen his era.
yeah. I mean, and again, because even my viewing of Revival Who is patchy. But I think you even said there's so many like contradictions that the Timeless Child even sort of brings into it
Yep.
with previously established canon. I mean, I guess that's the point, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, maybe it's not a callback, but either way, it just looks kind of dumb. Even if it was replaced with some other mysterious phrase, then
Yeah.
I could kind of be intrigued by it. But it's just ha ha ha. Like what's is the master like saying, "Ooh, I've got your companion trapped in the TARDIS with me, Doctor"? Ha ha. Like as we have previously said, it's Chibnall approaching the characters and the world and just this overall storytelling on a surface level. Like that, having it be such a surface level thing, just an image of ha ha ha, that you could argue is
Mm-hmm.
quite emblematic of how Chibnall's treated his arc in Doctor Who. Like it's again, it's ooh spooky and edgy.
Yeah.
That'll get everyone interested. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, who knows?
And
Maybe
it's
maybe like in isolation, I'm not sold. Maybe its place in the episode and the context that it has will make it work more. We
Maybe.
don't technically know.
Mm,
But
mm.
the image sort of reeks of he wanted to have the words change because that's a chilling image, but he couldn't work out what he wanted to say, so he just thought, I'll just have it be laughter.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
No.
At
Progressing with
all.
the trailer, we get this weird ball of light thing. The Master talking
Mm,
to the Doctor with Yaz in the background, which is interesting. So
mm.
and he's shaven at that point. So I don't know what point in
Yeah, yeah.
timeline that is.
Is that the bit? Is that the bit where he says you're about to be erased?
Yes,
I'm paraphrasing there,
yeah,
but yeah.
that's that moment. We get two planets warring with each other. It looks like there's like a weird
Mm,
Earth-like planet and then a Mars-looking planet, and they're both
mm,
firing like sort of missiles at each other.
mm,
Not sure what that is. And it doesn't even look like it's Earth actually, because we're watching this from the surface of a different planet. So they're probably two
mm,
alien civilizations at war with each other.
mm.
Uh, I don't think that's going to be particularly important. It's probably just going to be a backdrop. Um,
Maybe it'll be the Daleks and the Cybermen fighting
could
each
be.
other. Ooh.
It could be. I think the next shot is with with it. We get okay. So we get a big Death Star like structure firing a big laser at Earth,
Mm,
which I think is the Daleks doing their thing, because that's kind of what's been established at the trailer at this point so far. The fact that they are doing a Death Star kind of thing, it doesn't make me like we've got the ha 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 thing, which seems like it's pulling from the Joker more than anything else. Now we've got this Star Wars thing. I'm not always impressed when Doctor Who sort of does stuff that other fiction has already done to death.
Well, I've mentioned this before, but speaking of Star Wars, let me look at you with my own eyes
Yep.
thing that Davros does. I don't know how deliberate that was, but it still annoyed the shit out of me when I saw it. Um, Granted, most of my frustration, I think, came from the super twisty, 4D chess element of that scene,
Oh
but
no,
still,
100%. Yeah.
it annoyed me. But yeah, you're not wrong to point that out. Maybe, as you said, maybe like with the warring planets, it might just be like a backdrop sort of thing. I can forgive it if that's what it's doing. And I certainly think, given how wacky this special could be, that's probably going to be the least of our concerns.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
you're not wrong to point out that it's still kind of a bit of a shame to see a Doctor Who kind of copying other, sci-fi properties and not even in particularly subtle or interesting ways, especially given, as we've already discovered on this podcast, how wacky and unique and idiosyncratic Doctor Who is. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a bit frustrating, I have to agree.
After that, we get Cyberman with a shard, the lone Cyberman, and this is the thing that's always been the biggest question mark about the special for me, because
Mm,
we've got Chibnall bringing back past companions. If he doesn't understand how to write them, that's one thing because he hasn't written them before. The lone
mm,
Cyberman is his creation,
mm,
and he didn't do it nearly as well as Maxine Alderton did in Haunting of Villa Diodati.
but,
When the
yeah.
Shard was in that episode, he was dripping with character. He was so interesting.
Oh, yeah.
He was
Yeah.
a fantastic villain for that story. And then when he rocks up in the next episode, he's boring.
Yeah.
But even
Again,
then,
going... Mm,
Chibnall wrote a Shard's death. So the fact that he's here now, how? How is he back? Why is he back? This is what's making me think that the Master is pulling the Doctor's villains out of time and space to fight
yeah.
to hunt down and kill her, because
Yeah.
Chibnall knows that the lone Cyberman is dead. He killed him.
Yeah. Um... And again, it just kind of goes back to what we sort of said earlier. If this was even, a Moffat story, I could believe that he could at least try to get away with that, and may even succeed for all I know.
Yeah,
But because it's Chibnall, and because of the history he's had with the show, this could be just some sort of dumb piece of oversight.
yeah,
If it is a situation where, as you say, the Master's pulled all these villains from the Doctor's timeline, that could be cool, and maybe Chibnall will even do something interesting with it. We'll have to wait and see.
mm,
But again, it is perhaps indicative that Chibnall's playing so fast and loose with the canon at this point that it looks like he's just lost the plot
mm.
and that he's just stopped caring, which is really depressing, frankly.
Yeah.
Um,
We got a few more shots
yeah,
of just random action happening, not particularly interesting. Then we see Tegan, who is the
yeah,
second returning companion in this special. Now,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to paraphrase what a friend of the show, Sam Sweeting, said about Tegan's
Yeah,
appearance, because I
yeah,
think it sums up the what's probably going to happen pretty well.
mm.
And she said that Chibnall is probably going to forget that the reason Tegan left the show was because she just couldn't handle the trauma anymore. And
Yep,
instead, what Chibnall's going to do is have Tegan be very enthusiastic and overjoyed when she sees the
and gung
Doctor,
ho.
and go super gung ho and be like, "Oh my god, I've missed you like incredibly, like so much. Like this has been like
Yeah,
being with you was the greatest experience of my life."
yeah,
Putting aside the fact that her ending suggests no, she's done. She doesn't want any more of it. Now, granted, it has been decades since that episode. Characters can change off screen, but I don't think it's particularly good writing to change a character off screen to the point where they regress from their previous change. I think any
yeah, and
character change that happens off screen has to be forward, not backward.
mm. Or even if it is backward, like there has to be a justification behind it, and I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to get that with this special. I
No.
think, as you say, it's probably just going to be Tegan saying, "Oh, TARDIS, yeah, that's not giving me any kind of PTSD flashbacks at all. Yeah, no, it's not in any way reminding me of the fact that I was in a Dalek episode with a higher body count than the Terminator, and it doesn't
Mm.
remind me at all of the fact that one of the last things I said to the Doctor was, a lot of good people have died today." That's not reminding me of that at all. No, it's this exciting thing. Oh, the nostalgia. It's really mashing down the button on the nostalgia glands in my brain. I'm so excited. Hello,
Mm.
Doctor.
Well,
You're a woman now. Oh,
let's not forget that the shot that we get of Tegan in this trailer is her and Ace readying guns to fire.
yeah.
That doesn't seem like a character that's fed up with all this and doesn't like a body count. She's got a
Yeah,
gun. She's ready to fire it. Ready
and
for action. That's what Tegan was.
maybe they'll try and do a thing where it'll be like, oh, person who's reluctant, get him out of retirement to shoot the guns again, but I don't even think that's gonna work.
No.
Not to mention the fact that, and again, it kind of goes to the unfortunate element that I mentioned about, women characters in Classic Who. I could easily imagine, late 80s Ace doing something like that. Because again, she was gung-ho, she was,
Yeah.
you know, she was the one carrying the explosives in the backpack and wielding the baseball bat. From memory, Tegan wasn't.
No.
I'm not sure if she, like, completely fulfills the stereotype of, like, the damsel in distress. I mean, she probably does, and perhaps even more than I'm willing to admit, which is unfortunate. But, if out of those two characters, she would be the least likely to do that. And again,
Definitely.
especially because, as you've mentioned, last time we checked, she was traumatized by all of this.
Yeah.
So the only way they're going to make that come right is if they have some sort of, oh, come on, Tegan, the Doctor needs help. Let's save the day. I know you're scared, but it's okay to be scared, but we've still got to do the right thing. You know.
That's reaching. That's not going to happen.
It's really sad, but
they're firing at Cybermen as well. We see what they're firing at. They're firing at Cybermen. They're firing at a Shad. I think they're in unit at that point, even though unit doesn't exist. I don't think in this timeline because I think they shut that down. But I think they're in unit. I think K Stewart's brought unit back. They're probably the Cybermen are attacking units, which doesn't make sense because a Shard comes from the future, which makes me think even more that there is a time travel element happening here.
Yeah, I think that'd have to be, surely.
Then we get a space train, which is one of the things that it's easy to overlook in this trailer. It's like a half a second shot of a space train.
I did not notice that, I must admit.
It's about the 44-second mark or 45-second mark, and it's not this kind of space train that we see in Mummy on the Orient Express. It's like a bullet train kind of thing, traveling through I think it's traveling through the vortex potentially. I'm just having a look again. Yeah, it definitely looks like it's a bullet train traveling through the time vortex, or at least being teleported somewhere, which just makes me think even more that this is going to be some huge bombastic thing where stuff's going to be happening every minute. There's not going to be a lot of time for character. I mean, it's a 90-minute special. I think even that's going to feel rushed.
Because it's a bullet train?
I mean, just a special in general. Like, it's 90 minutes long. They're still not going to have enough time for slowing down and checking in with characters, at least in any way that's meaningful, because Chibnall just want to keep throwing everything at the screen, you know.
That that was a horrible, lazy attempt at a joke. Having said that, it probably will feel kind of like a bullet train because, as you say, he's going to be throwing in so many random shit. I mean, my God, the Legend of the Sea Devils, that was 50 minutes, and that felt like something else. So God knows what he's going to do with 90 minutes.
Well, one of the next important things we get in the trailer is a shot of Yaz saying, "I don't want it to end," which is something that I don't think is talked about nearly enough when it comes to the end of this era. Because we know that Jodie's going to regenerate. You know, that's a lock. We know that Yaz is leaving the show. That's also a lock. How does Yaz leave the show? That's, I think, a big question that no one cares about, because no one cares about Yaz, but it's something that we gotta, I think, consider. Because I think we can pretty much easily guess how Dan's gonna leave. He's gonna go off with Diane. They're gonna have the happy ever after. They've telegraphed that. Forget about it. Yaz, on the other hand, I genuinely cannot see her leaving the show, because her whole thing is, I'm in love with with the Doctor. So I think that they might do something tragic with Yaz. They might do like they'll either do she gets trapped somewhere in time and she can never come back. They'll do an Amy and Rory thing, or they might even kill her, because I don't think she would ever willingly leave the show. Sam made a joke over the weekend that it was like, I wonder if they're gonna do a reverse Curse of Fatal Death and have the Doctor regenerate into either Tennant or Ncuti Gatwa, and then Yaz goes, "Oh, you're a man now? Oh, I'm not interested anymore." I don't think that's what it'll be. But
no, I don't think so either. But
yeah, but I mean, it genuinely raises the question: how is Yaz gonna exit the show? I mean, do you have any guesses at this point?
I think, especially when you put it into context with that shot of Yaz in the TARDIS with the Master, it probably will be a death. And because it's one of those things, almost like the romance element itself. Having a character die, it's kind of a cheap way to make, to tug at the audience's heartstrings. It's like, yeah, I get that you maybe didn't care about these characters so much, but, they're dying, so that's really sad.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I don't...
I'm going to touch on this more with my predictions at the end of this discussion.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think something that we've just said has triggered, like, an idea in my head as to what they might end up doing. And it plays into what one of my predictions was already going to be, but we'll get to that in a minute. And the last shot of the trailer is obviously the Doctor about to regenerate, and she says, "Yaz." That was in the last trailer as well. It's nothing special. Yeah. And that's the trailer. I'm not excited about this.
No, neither am
I. I'm only excited in the sense that after this, we don't get any more of it.
Yeah.
Like, after this, there's going to be, like, no matter what happens in the special, no matter how bad it is, at the end of it, I am going to breathe a sigh of relief, because the era is over, we've got Russell T Davies back, and we can get the show back on the rails, so to speak.
Yeah, It's the Chibnall era.
Yeah, exactly. So now...
That's what it is.
Let's do our predictions. We've touched on this a bit over the episode, but I don't think we've fully explained it to the audience yet. But what we're going to do, both myself and Fitz are going to give 5 predictions, different predictions, I might say. We can't do the same thing as each other. 5 different predictions. I hope they're
different.
Well,
anyway.
I haven't properly planned mine out yet. It sounds like you have. So if
I have, yes,
if one of yours is something similar to what of mine is going to be, I'll just change it up. Or if I say, we'll go one at a time, so we'll have time to think about stuff. We're each going to give 5 predictions, and we're all going to write. I'm going to write them all down. When one of us gives a prediction, the other person is going to assign it a point value based on how unlikely we think it is to happen. The more points, the more unlikely. When we do our episode review next week, we'll be able to we'll tally up who got more points. That person is the winner. We're doing a little competitive thing. It's just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And I think it's also worth noting, we're both... I can't speak for you, but I'm going to try and go into this episode with an open mind. I'm not... Obviously, we both kind of have an idea at the moment that we're not going to like the story very much based on all the evidence. But who knows? We haven't seen it yet. Maybe it'll be amazing. We just don't know.
Yeah.
But based on everything we've seen about this era and the trailer, these are our predictions. You've already given your first one, Fitz. Let me write it down again. What's the wording of your prediction?
Chibnall will write Ace only at a surface level. and in parentheses, placing spectacle above character.
Surface level. Cool. I think that's almost a lock, basically. So I'm not going to give you many points for it. I'm going to assign that 100 points.
Actually, that reminded me. So how does this point thing work? So 100's the maximum.
No.
And sorry.
And as many points as you want based on how unlikely it is. I'm giving you 100 for that. I'm calling that almost certainly going to happen, and that should give you some idea as to how high the point values might be able to get based on how unlikely things are.
So, and the lower the point, the
more likely.
More. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm giving you 100. There might be things that we put in the thousands or even the millions. Based on how
I was going to say.
they are.
Okay, so you think this is pretty certain.
Yeah, much like Chibnall, right. I'm going for spectacle. I'm going for huge point totals.
Yeah.
That being said,
fair enough.
My first prediction, I think there's a chance that it might come true. I think that the shot we've seen of the Doctor regenerating is a fake out. I don't think that will be her actual regeneration scene. I think that she'll be regenerating and she'll find a way to shake it off. Here's how I think the structure will actually go down. I think this is like this is a lot more of a reach. But based on everything we've seen and all we've speculated, here's what I think is going to happen. Jodie's trapped in the tube. The Master's finally got her. She's regenerating. And the Master's with Yaz. And the Master goes, while you're dying, I want you to know what you lost. And he kills Yaz. Or at the very least wounds Yaz in some way that she's going to die. That's when we get the Yaz moment. And Jodie's grief will cause her to be able to shake off the regeneration, burst out of her containment, and defeat the Master. At which point she looks over Yaz as she's dying. They're obviously going to kiss. Neither of us are going to predict that. That's obviously going to happen. Yaz dies. Doctor goes back to the TARDIS alone, then regenerates. That's like my larger prediction for this one, but my main prediction for this first one is that the Yaz scene isn't when Jodie will regenerate.
I just thought of a random thing, like, I won't count it as one of my predictions, but I wonder, and this may not even work with established lore, but could Jodie, like, give some of her regeneration ability to Yaz to bring her back to life? Do you think that would work, or do you think they'd have to, like, just kill her off because she's not returning? I mean... If
Yaz remains alive, she would keep travelling with the Doctor, based on everything we've learned about the character.
Yeah, that's true.
So they have to write her off in some way that she wouldn't choose to keep going with the Doctor, and at this point I just don't see that happening. I think that she's going to die or in some way be forcibly removed from the Doctor's life.
Ooh, okay.
But my main prediction is that Yaz...
Is that it's going to be a fake out.
That Yaz scene isn't when she regenerates.
Yeah, okay.
How many points are you giving that? Because that could go either way, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to go with... I'll put that at 45. I think I'm going to give that 45
points. Okay.
Simply because...
So you think that's more likely than Ace being written at a surface level?
No.
Okay, cool. If that's your point metric, I'm actually going to switch mine up. I'm going to give you 10 points for the Ace thing as opposed to 100.
So you think it's unlikely that that's going to happen?
I think Ace is almost certainly going to be written at a surface level. I think the Yaz scene not being the regeneration could go either way.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So again, just
switching it up
for my slow brain. So the less points,
the more likely it is to happen.
Okay, yeah, and of course we want to get the most points. Okay, that makes sense. All right, yes, fair enough.
So 10 points for Ace being written at a service level, 45 points for the Yaz scene not being the regeneration.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why I say that is because it does seem like one of those sort of wacky Chibnall twists, I guess, but I honestly don't know if he'd have enough imagination to put it in there. Like, I could imagine even Moffat doing something like that with a weird fake out, and we've seen him do sort of fake outs before.
Well,
he's
done that actually, yeah, because the season 12 trailer the season 10 trailer showed Capaldi about to regenerate, and then he starts to regenerate in the Lie of the Land, and then it turns out it's a fake regeneration to test Bill on whether or not she's being controlled by the monks. So he has done that fake out regeneration in trailers before. It's a thing that he's done.
Yeah. So if it does happen, I won't be super, super surprised, but
Yeah.
I might be a little bit surprised because, again, I think especially with the whole Yaz-Doctor relationship, they want to milk the tragedy of it for all it's worth, and I don't think Chibnall's going to, again, putting this thing with the Doctor, like, tries to save Yaz, because, again, I think they just want to underscore the tragedy, say, oh, they loved each other, bleh. So, again, it's not impossible,
Yeah.
but it's not super likely, I don't think.
Before we brought up the Yaz stuff, my main reasoning for this is that every single regeneration that we've seen on screen, apart from the Eighth Doctor in the small special that we get before the 50th, every single regeneration that we've had has been in the TARDIS, and that's a handy way to do that. You know, it's a closed set. It's a lot easier to hide who the next Doctor's going to be before you officially announce it. This one isn't. And especially because there is a lot of questions about if Jodie is going to regenerate into either Ncuti Gatwa or David Tennant, which I think could go either way. I'm not sold on whichever outcome that's going to be yet. I don't know.
I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying... A lot of people. I've heard that it'll probably be Tennant, but yeah, it could probably go either way.
It could either way. Like, the fact that, you know, if the regeneration is in this tube thing, wherever that may be, it's not on the TARDIS, it's not on a closed set, that would make it harder to hide if David Tennant's returning or not, which makes me think this isn't the actual regeneration scene, and we're going to get the actual scene back on the TARDIS, where it's a lot easier to hide an actor getting to and from set. Yeah, I don't know. That's my only thing. So what's your second prediction?
I'm gonna actually do this. I do have them written down, but I'm gonna go because I realize some of these are actually kind of obvious, but I'll go through those ones first. So
let me know which one you want to lock in as one of your predictions.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just lock in this one. Okay.
Cool.
So the suggestions of a relationship between Yaz and the Doctor will only increase, with the Doctor ultimately making some grand statement of love for Yaz. I think that's... How likely do you think that is, Cuff?
I think it'll... Oh, no. No matter what, it's not going to be done well. I'll tell you that much.
No, well... Yeah.
I'm gonna... look, and don't... I'm gonna give this an appropriate amount of points. I'll put that at 69 points.
16. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's way more likely that Yaz is the one that makes the big profession of love speech.
That's true.
But I can easily see the Doctor doing it as well, which is why I'm giving you less than 100 for that.
I'm surprised you're actually giving me that high, because I think this is basically inevitable. Like, I think because the whole thing of Yaz and the Doctor, you know, being in love, they've been trying to foreshadow this for a bit. Well, ham-fisted though it is,
my
poorly
thoughts
considered.
are because no matter if the Doctor makes a big speech about her love for Yaz or not, they're going to have a kiss. That is happening. Yeah. So what I think might even happen is the Doctor might not even do a big speech, and she might just at some point look at Yaz and just grab her face and mwah, you know.
Yeah, it
could go either way, which is why I'm giving you that many points for that one.
Yeah, fair enough. I feel like, I don't know. It just feels like something that Chibnall would do at this point, to make some sort of great big thing, to make the show, you know, appear as, you know, progressive, you know, or woke as possible.
Yeah.
You know, despite the fact that, and I've said this to you privately before, Cuff, but despite the fact that I'm convinced that if you look past the, you know, politics of this era beyond a surface level, it's one of the most conservative eras we've had, certainly in Revival Who.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other topic, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like one of those sort of tokenistic point-scoring things that Chibnall's just going to cram in there so that he can pat himself on the back and say, oh, I did such a good job, guys. Never mind the fact that my characters weren't nuanced at all, and this was sort of forced in, and it looks kind of icky and dumb and pointless. You know, yay me. I just feel like it's one of those things that Chibnall would do. Having said that, as you say, it probably could be, you know, like it's neither here or there. It could be either. at this point.
Well, speaking of
Um,
point scoring, my second one is
mhm.
also a speech related thing. I believe that if Jodie does give a speech in the special, I believe that it's going to be almost word for word a paraphrase of the iconic "One Day I Shall Come Back" speech. I think
Um,
that Chibnall has gotten so used to borrowing stuff from other eras that in order to make this farewell seem more poignant, he will rip off one of Hartnell's most iconic speeches.
well, here's the thing. I'm not sure he would because, I mean, I know that we've obviously, as we've just been discussing, he's obviously kind of hell bent on putting all these references to old classic Who, but eh, I mean that I would say that that feels like a Moffat ripoff, like a move that a Moffat imitator would do,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure that Chibnall probably thinks of himself as following in Moffat's footsteps, but I don't even think he's going to do that. I think that speech itself, as iconic as it is a very sort of heartfelt, I think meaningful speech, and I just don't think that
Mm-hmm.
Chibnall's going to want to explore these
Well,
characters
here's the thing.
even to that
Oh
level.
no, he'll ruin the intention of the original speech.
Mm.
But imagine this: imagine Yaz doesn't die, but like the Doctor realizes that Yaz traveling with the Doctor is putting her in way more harm than good. So she does the exact same thing that she did with uh, Susan, and she like locks the TARDIS doors on
Oh
Yaz,
yeah,
leaves her
yeah,
behind, and from the TARDIS delivers a big speech being like, "It's okay, Yaz, you'll see me again." Like blah blah blah. I
yeah.
can easily see Chibnall doing that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I
But
think that context that does.
that's only if that like specific moment happens though, you know? Like it's I don't
Yeah, yeah, true. One would have to sort of lead
yeah.
to the other, which yeah, that kind of makes more sense with that context because yeah, that element of having again that forced bit of sentiment that would be kind of just frustrating, you know, and almost pointless. That I could imagine.
Mhm.
And I guess in that sense, yeah, bringing back that call back in that cheap way, but it, completely botching the speech and missing out on the context and not,
Mhm.
that. And I'll say this though, that could also sort of tap into the speech that the Doctor gave at the end of Legend of the Sea Devils, which he says, "I can't remain fixed to anything.
Yeah.
I can't, I can't love anybody. So I'll come back and visit you, but this has to end. We can't. So that, in a sense, that does make a bit more sense. So
How many points?
yeah, putting all that together, I'm 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 gonna give that. I think I'm gonna give it a 65
Cool.
for me. Yeah.
So we've both given speech predictions and we think they're both about equally as likely to happen.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
What's your third one going to be?
It's gonna be again another cheap one, which we already discussed.
Yeah.
The Cybermen and the Daleks will finally form an alliance under the guidance of the Master to fight the Doctor. I mean, we basically kind of discussed that, but that wouldn't surprise me at all if that's what's happening here, because as you say, we've got a shard coming back and having the Daleks in there. I mean, I'm sure they're just going to be there. Chibnall's not going to probably use them in a terribly interesting way. It's just probably going to be, standard baddie.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me if the Master is kind of orchestrating all of this. And I say finally simply because the last time, I mean, unless I'm missing out on something, I mean, maybe I'm forgetting stuff with the Pandorica, but the last time there was a definitive attempt at making an alliance between the Daleks and the Cybermen, the Daleks, you know, exterminated the pests.
Yes.
So, um, if that was going to happen, it would be under the guidance of the Master, who would, trick them or mind control them or do God knows what to just make them say, "Oh, Doctor, go get her,"
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my prediction on that
I'll
note.
give you 20 points for that one. I think that's almost inevitable as well.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah,
I
fair
think
enough.
I think there is still a chance that like the stuff that's happening with returning villains is sort of like happening randomly and it isn't the Master's handiwork, especially because we haven't really seen
Mm.
Daleks and Cybermen in the same shot in any of these trailers yet. But I do think it is likely that the Master is pulling all the strings and bringing these villains together
Yeah.
to fight the Doctor. So
Sure,
I'm
sure.
not giving you many points for that one. I think that's almost
Yeah, that's completely
almost
fair.
certain. My third one
Hmm.
and I haven't put as much thought into these as you have, because I've sort of been going into this expecting the trailer to kind of bring up stuff, but I believe that we're going to. I think that there are going to be villains in this special that we haven't seen in the trailer, whether or not they're Sontarans or Zygons or
So like old school like villains that have appeared before.
Yeah, we're going to get other recurring villains beyond what we've seen in the trailer. Now, I'm not sure if this is actually going to happen or not, purely because I feel like Chibnall would want to put all of them in the trailer to try and bring up as much hype as possible, but he might decide to leave that little thing in the pocket for a surprise in the episode.
Yeah. It's possible. I think... Here's the thing. I want to say that he wouldn't do that because he wants to spend most of the time focusing on the characters and the relationship between Yaz and the Doctor. But one, even if he does that, it's probably not going to be in a nuanced way. But two, as we've already discussed, he has a habit of chucking in way too much into a story. God knows what the hell he's going to do with 90 minutes.
Yep.
So if it turns out there's some sort of rift in the time vortex and all the villains come spilling out of it and they come to fight the Doctor again, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Or even, I wonder, again, this is a small thing, but I wonder if they could, if he'll try and do like a cheap callback to the end of Tom Baker's era when he was regenerating and they had like a montage of all like the Doctor's previous villains. Well, not all of them, but most of them. I wonder if they'll do something like that. That would be... I mean, I don't know how to react to that. It would be interesting, I guess. But
we already know that there's going to be more stuff in the special than we've seen, because we know that Graham is returning. We know that...
Yeah, was that confirmed?
I think Bradley Walsh has said that he's back in it.
Okay.
It's probably going to be something akin to what we've seen in other Regeneration specials, where at the end of the story, after everything's resolved, we get clips of the other companions to say goodbye to their Doctor. David Tennant had a big old montage where he goes and says goodbye to everyone. Matt Smith hallucinates Amy in the TARDIS. Glass Bill gives Capaldi his memories of Clara back. It's established that we sort of get a final goodbye from previous companions. So it's almost that's a 0-point prediction that Graham and Ryan are back. But I think we're gonna get another villain that we've seen before.
Yeah. Fair enough. I'm gonna give that... Yeah, I'll give that a 70, I think.
Cool.
I think fairly likely, but not guaranteed.
Yeah, fair enough. Your fourth prediction?
Yes, these are the more interesting ones.
Yeah, I've got a couple like that as well. These might stretch into the hundreds or multi-hundreds point range. I'm going for points with my last two.
Yeah. I'll start with this one because the second sentence of it I kind of came up with a little bit quickly because I thought, how wacky can I make this prediction a little bit? But anyway, so this prediction. Chibnall will double down on the retconning with an even wackier twist. Perhaps it is revealed that the Doctor was solely responsible for starting the Time War in an effort to seek revenge against the Time Lords for lying about the Timeless Child. Now, I will put the caveat here.
Wow.
I put the caveat here. Because I know that my viewing of the Revival era has been kind of patchy. I was going to ask, has that ever been done before?
Well,
because
I don't think it's been established why the Time War began. At the very least, if it has, it's been established in, the extended universe stuff, either big fiction or novelizations. I don't know if it's ever been established in the main universe of Doctor Who why the Time War began.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I have very mixed feelings about that prediction because it seems like something so wacky that only Chibnall would do it. But, it's so
that would be
insane.
That would be extra fucky because, Chibnall has largely left the Time War alone.
He
hasn't really brought it up before. So to bring it up in his final episode and... to do to the Time War what he's already done to the origins of the show. He's already made the beginning of the show in 1963 make no sense anymore. For them to then go ahead and make the Revival's beginning in 2005 make no sense. would be almost like a it would be an appropriate bookend for his era,
It kind of
weirdly
would.
enough. So
And
you've
it feels
actually,
like...
real
Yeah.
quick, you've said two things in that thing. He doubles
Yeah.
down on timeless child stuff with another reveal. I feel like that's almost inevitable. Are we happy to make your main prediction that the Doctor was responsible for the Time War?
Yeah, that's my main one. I mean,
Cool.
I think... Because it's not even specifically the Thomas Child stuff, just the fact that he has a habit of retconning and doing all this wacky, insane shit. So it's more that second sentence.
The Doctor was responsible for the Time War. That is a huge swing for the fences.
Yeah, that's because... Yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, bear in mind that the highest score we've given for one of the predictions so far is 70. I'm giving that 1,000.
Yeah.
And if it comes true, ding, 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 ding. Like, that wins you the...
What do we have for him, Johnny? we have a destroyed cannon and a devastated fan base and a massive shit show for RTD to clean up. That's what we've got.
Well, we don't just have a devastated fan base, because remember, there is a small pocket of Doctor Who fans that believe this era to be very, very good. There is a small pocket of fans that like this era. I wonder what that would do for them.
Here's the thing. You know what's really sad about this? Is the idea of the Doctor, starting the Time War because the Time Lords lied to her. And by the way...
We need to clarify. The Doctor being responsible for the Time War, it means Jodie's Doctor. If this episode
let's be clear.
Paul McGann's Doctor did something that sparked the Time War, I could believe that happened. But we need to clarify, it's Jodie going back in time to confront the Time Lords, which began the Time War somehow.
This thing of the Doctor wanting to get revenge and again destroying her entire species, it's like, that seems so, I'd say petty, but that's putting it mildly.
Mm-hmm.
But the weird thing is, if there was a Doctor that was gonna do that, I would kind of believe it would be Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, just the way that she's written, because she's done some kind of shitty things in her tenure as the Doctor.
Yeah.
So somehow, even if Chibnall wants to justify it by saying, yeah, this goes against who the Doctor is as a person, before Jodie, but it's still consistent with my characterization of the Doctor, then that's fine. We can take this insane risk. For that reason, don't get me wrong, it would surprise me, but it wouldn't surprise me as much as it probably should.
Sure.
But yeah, 1,000, fair enough.
1,000 points for that one.
Fair enough.
I'm going with something that's also kind of a wild card swing, but I don't think it's nearly as unlikely as your one is.
Yeah, sure.
I think that at the last second, when the Doctor's about to properly die, not regenerate, but properly die, all hope is going to seem lost, everything's going to look bleak, and then all of a sudden, the Ruth Doctor is going to arrive and save the day.
Yeah.
Because think about it, we have to get, this is a Doctor that epitomizes the ballsiness of this era to play fast and loose with the canon. The Ruth Doctor is the complete approximation of how little Chibnall understands the lore. She's going to appear again. Whether or not that's in a voice in Jodie's head, that's probably the more likely option, but I think she's gonna full on arrive to save the day, and maybe the Ruth Doctor is the one that gives the big lore dump that makes even more canon shit happen. So yeah, I think the Ruth Doctor saves Jodie is my main prediction.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair assumption, honestly. I think it's it's not guaranteed. It might be just a quick, like a flashback or a flash forward or whatever.
Yeah.
It's some brief scene of her, but as you say, this is, she's the symbol for how fast and loose that Chibnall's playing with the canon.
Yeah.
So if she does come back and does something like that, that wouldn't terribly surprise me. So I'm gonna give that. I think I'm actually gonna give that an 80. Again, not guaranteed, but pretty likely.
I thought I'd break 100 with that one. I'm gonna have to really dig deep. In my last prediction.
Although to be fair, yeah, I mean, because you did give my one 1,000. Okay, well,
if you think it's an 80 score, I'm happy enough to play for stuff that is still in the realm of possibility. and
Fair
just
enough.
bank on your 1,000 not coming true.
Yeah, to be fair, my mom was pretty... So yeah, that's fine. Alright, no, I'll stick with 80 in which case.
Yeah, go ahead. Your final prediction.
This one is slightly... Well, actually, I don't know if it's more likely, and I honestly kind of hope that it isn't. There will be a rushed attempt to retcon the retcon, where it is revealed that the Master lied to the Doctor about the Timeless Child and used some sort of wacky sci-fi tech to implant false memories in her mind. This may even lead into the revelation that Whittaker's Doctor was not real and part of some parallel dreamscape. The erasing that the Master refers to could be a way to segue into Whittaker regenerating into Tennant.
That's insanity. That's almost an infinity point prediction. Because I'll tell you why. This was the fact that the Master lying about Timeless Child is a genuine theory that I had for how the show could get itself back on track after Timeless Child. My main thought, like before Flux, and this is key, before Flux, the way I would fix Timeless Child is have it be like the Master implanted false memories in the memory machine, the Matrix that the Doctor was trapped in. In fact, that wasn't the Matrix at all. What that was a method to get the Doctor to pump her memories into it, because as we know, her memories should not overload the Time Lord Matrix that can hold the memories of every single Time Lord that's ever lived. There's infinitely more memories in there than hers. So I think that my theory was going to be the Master tricks the Doctor into pouring her memories into this thing, which is actually a vessel that creates the Valiard.
Right.
That was what my theory was going to be, and if I was writing it, that's how I would fix it, because that still makes the events of that episode, they're still part of the lore, there's still things that happened, it's just that there were lies. But Flux happens, and that's kind of impossible now, unfortunately. That doesn't mean that Chibnall might not try that. Unfortunately, events of episodes that you haven't seen kind of make this one impossible. I'll give it 1,000,000 points.
Fair enough. I think the only reason I would have said it, and again, as you say, I haven't seen all Flux.
It's that clinging onto hope, isn't it?
Yeah. It's well, here's the thing, right? The reason why I suspect at all that it could happen is, I don't know, Chibnall may realise just how much his era of Doctor Who is disliked. I mean, the BBC's kind of admitting that, yeah. Like, we've already seen the fact that they're not hyping this up to be the great spectacle that other regenerations have been. So maybe he's realised that, and maybe he wants to kind of just track back on everything. He's just going to say, oh, no, don't worry, guys, it was just some wacky stuff. I wasn't thinking too clearly. Bye-bye, wacky throwing around with the canon.
See, here's the thing. I don't think Chibnall has that kind of self-awareness for a number of reasons. Firstly, his episodes are largely getting good critic reviews. Because, because critics are like, was it a fun sci-fi romp? Cool, it was Doctor Who. Give it an 8 or whatever.
Basically feeling like I felt
but
4 years ago.
It would be very easy for Chibnall to conflate people who have actual criticisms about this era with the people that are still butthurt about the show's political correctness.
Yeah, exactly.
So it would be insanely easy for him to see genuine criticisms as people who are like, oh, they're just finding things to nitpick because the Doctor's a woman now.
Yeah. It's such a painful situation.
It is, yeah.
I think even really for all Who fans to be in, it's just so shitty in that sense. But yeah, like he probably says, Arachnids in the UK, 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's fresh, guys. Don't worry, I can take care of it. So yeah, but there's just something about me that wonders whether he will have kind of almost like a writer's remorse about this and just totally backtrack. Here's the thing, though. You say, oh, that's the last glimmer of hope I've got, but I actually don't want that to happen. And the reason why it's not just because it would be a backtrack thing. As you kind of pointed at, it would kind of confirm all the shitty opinions that, the morons and the assholes have had about this era of Doctor Who. And especially if they have... I mean, I'll feel this way if they have Jodie regenerate into Tennant anyway, but especially with this wacky prediction I've just made, if they were to do that, it would basically be like the BBC and Chibnall symbolically saying, "Don't worry, guys. Remember that wacky time when we made that weird experiment where we made the Doctor a woman? Remember that? That's over now. Now you can go back to your same safe, happy-go-lucky sci-fi romp stories that don't challenge you or don't do anything interesting or different. It doesn't matter, because it's all over now. We backtracked on it. Here's David Tennant. Fuck off." Like, it's... Again, for that reason alone, I hope they don't do that.
Well, it also needs to be a big... Okay, cool. Even for the people who've... Like, because I've just mentioned, like, there are people who like this era of the show. So imagine them watching it and going, "Oh, so what you're saying is the last 5 years of this show that I've quite enjoyed haven't mattered at all?"
Yeah, haven't mattered at all. Oh, yeah, so... You know what, honestly, 1,000,000 points. Fair enough.
Alright, my last prediction.
Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, God, what am I going to say here? You've thrown out some wild ones. Oh man, I feel like I've got to go big here, but I also kind of want to just, play the game and try and get some incremental scores in case some of my other ones don't come true. Because I feel like you've thrown out some ballers, but you've also got some stuff that is almost guaranteed.
Yeah, it's weird. I wrote some of them, like, when I looked at them, it's like, this is... Yeah, this is going to happen. Yeah, right, but then with those last two, it's like... And by the way, the order that I just read all those in, they're not even in the order that I wrote them.
Right.
I just did that to sort of build up to the sort of the wackiest stuff. But yeah, I don't know, it's kind of weird it turned out that way.
Okay, what am I going to say here?
Look into your two hearts and do what's right. Anyway.
I'm not even thinking about, like, the trailer anymore. I'm just trying to think what's the most insane prediction I can make here to try and...
Yeah.
Right at the end of this, gain a huge amount of points for something that is stupid. Oh, no, here it is. Okay. This episode has an environmental subtext. They are somehow going to try and shoehorn...
Like an environmentalist message.
Yeah, they're going to shoehorn in a... like something that will get the people complaining about the show being politically correct now. They're going to have an underlying subtext that is... Well, no, it's not even going to be a subtext. It's going to be overtly spoken about throughout a lot of the episode that is some kind of real-world socio-political issue that is shoehorned in for no reason.
So, okay, I want to clarify, though. Do you mean specifically the environmentalist message?
I'm using environmentalism
as
as, like, an example, because Orphan 55 is the most obvious example of this in the show. But it could be any kind of...
Could be any
kind of socio-political issue that Chibnall is going to throw in there for brownie points.
Yeah, and not even actually really...
Without it being properly integrated into the story. Bearing in mind that the trailer doesn't really hint at that. It hints at some kind of, like...
Yeah.
It hints at some kind of huge, big sci-fi romp. But, we know that the show has loved to do these for no reason as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think... I am a little split because I don't know how likely it is, but it's not unlikely. So... I'm gonna give this... Ooh, this is tough.
Just gut instinct, Mike. I'm happy with you having the
Yeah,
huge...
okay, you know what? I'll say it. I'll give it 55 points.
Cool. I'm playing middle of the road, but I'm not... Like, I like the way this has worked out, actually, because you've got a lot of stuff that is probably going to happen. My stuff is likely, but it might not happen. So it's possible that I get none of mine, and you get, like, the ones of yours that are guaranteed and you win. But if one of mine comes true, if just one of mine comes true, you've got to rely on your huge swings.
Yeah,
in order to make up
exactly.
The point difference.
That's kind of great though. It's going to make it very interesting.
Well, I've got these written down. I'm going to be keeping track of these as we watch the episode. And cool. I think it'd be a good idea as we do our timescales score for Power of the Doctor. At the end of that, we go over who got more points or who got
Yeah,
who
sure.
got who got however many amount of points, and we'll see who won that.
Mhm.
That'll be fun to keep track of in that episode.
Yeah, it will.
Um,
Um,
Speaking of, next week's episode of the podcast is The Power of the Doctor. It's so close and it's so scary.
it is. It's quite it's terrifying, honestly. There's part of me that wants to say I'm kind of excited about it simply because we'll be able to discuss it, but like I'm very nervous. I'm
Yeah.
very, very
Well,
nervous.
just imagine like how we went into Legend of the Sea Devils. Like that ended up being a bad episode, but at its core, we were intrigued about how they were going to do the Sea Devils. You know, there was some
Yeah.
aspect of going into that episode that we were both excited about.
I think my mind is sort of blocked from memory. Sort of the worst parts of that episode. So only now that you bring them up, I'm having sort of flashbacks. So that's not promising.
Well, no, I mean I think discussing that episode really brought out both of our resentments about this era, like to the surface.
It really did.
Because like there was a time when we were both generally fine with this era or enjoying it in some way, but a combination of the time we've had off in between seasons to think about stories, hearing other people's opinions of the stories, and then properly actually critically reviewing a Chibnall era story together. I think it's really highlighted to both of us that this has been a really, really dark 5 years of the show. And I think now that I say we've got the light at the end of the tunnel, but the scariest thing is that this is the part of the tunnel that is in the most danger of caving in.
Yep, that's true. That's very, very true. Yeah, just when you thought it was safe, doom, yeah.
Okay.
That's a fair point.
Well, join us next week when we'll be discussing The Power of the Doctor. Good God. I don't think we're ready, honestly.
Oh no, God no.
I
mean, we've got a couple of weeks to still prepare, and we won't be ready then.
Yeah, we're recording this a week before you're hearing it. So for us, we've got 2 weeks to prep for The Power of the Doctor. For you guys, it's a week or less away. Or you're listening to this after the fact, and it's already aired, and you know what's happened, and you're listening to this back to hear how wrong we are, which is always fun. Okay, let's wrap this up. I'm Alex.
Yeah. I'm Fitz.
And brace yourselves. No matter what, next week is going to be a doozy.
A doozy, indeed.
I'm shaking in my wellies.